views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, how are you? It's nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz on BronxNet Television. And this evening, we've got a great show. We're going to go from the top of the political discourse and writing in New York State to a really interesting Bronx artist who is actually focusing on the MTA. So we'll get some images of our buses, subways, and streets and everything else. But right now, let's start off with my longtime friend. He is the editor-in-chief of City and State New York, Ralph Ortega. Nice to have you with us, Ralph.
Hey, Gary. Hi. How are you doing?
Great to see you again. You know, when I see you, it's almost like we just continue the conversation that we had the last time. But really, I was pleased and surprised to find that this week is the 15th anniversary of City and State New York. The anniversary edition, if it's not in your mailbox today, it will be in there tomorrow. It features a Bronx elected official, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Just talk to me about where this, I think it's an incredible magazine, is at right now, and why this really is a momentous thing, 15 years of covering the state of New York.
It is for us, and we hope so as well for our readers, Gary. When we set out to make this anniversary issue, we wanted to look back 5 years and see where we were as a city, as a state, ourselves as a publication. And we asked ourselves the question, who were the most powerful individuals each one of those years? And then we broke it down to who was probably the most powerful person, and that's how we decided on AOC.
The magazine, if anybody hasn't seen it, you go to cityandstatenewyork.com. I guess it's online. You can pick it up that way. The magazine has emerged over, I think, the last 5 years. As you know, I've been doing this for a lot longer than even 15, but it really has emerged as one of the most important publications in New York State. What is it that makes, I know what my opinion is, but what do you see as the reason that City and State has done so well, has been able to become what I think is the standard for political reporting in New York State?
Well, thank you very much, Gary. It starts off with a great team. We have a group of journalists who I think I've said this before on your program, that we sit around thinking about things that not everybody sits around thinking about in terms of politics. And we also come from the very local perspective. So, without local news in these last few years, with its diminish, City and State has certainly found a very proper niche to deliver insightful, policy-driven stories and analysis on a consistent basis daily, and also through our weekly magazine. So when you devote that kind of energy every single day, pretty much, with our newsletters, we have a deployment of 2 first-read newsletters in the morning and in the evening. We have our Albany Agenda newsletter, which really capsulizes the biggest stories in Albany from our perspective. Again, you're going to find content at City and State that isn't on everybody's radar screen. Our competitors certainly give us good reason to want to stay on those, but we like to pride ourselves in thinking of a lot of things before everybody else does.
Let's just get to the evaluation of AOC as maybe the most influential figure over the last 15 years, and the whole notion of progressive politics. I posed this similar sort of question to 3 of the new Bronx Assembly members who are all people of color and are going to be in the assembly, or actually right now are in the assembly for the first time, all progressive leaning, all left leaning. And I said, does AOC get the credit? And one of them told me, Amanda Septimo told me, which I thought was fascinating, there has been a groundswell of this activity, and she just ended up embodying it. So while she gives AOC the credit, it really was the culmination, certainly in the Bronx, of grassroots work that led to that. Do you want to just comment on this notion of power, which you have examined probably every week, and why she has become the embodiment of all of that grassroots work?
Well, it's a hard choice to pin who exactly is the most powerful person, right? We went over this. I mean, you could argue so many other people. I mean, Letitia James, of course. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez comes in not as exactly the most consequential politician at the moment. I mean, she's just getting started. And I think that's what most people we speak to tell us to keep in perspective, and not to mistaken her for all the things she's been able to accomplish, but to really to look at the big picture, to see what she's actually inspired and she's been a catalyst for, because she was outspoken. She's always outspoken, whether it's her cause or not. I mean, Amazon is a great example. And you know, she came in, and because of her outspokenness, she captured an election. I mean,
Right.
Joe Crowley.
That was a landmark moment,
Yeah.
and then you look, of course, at Jamal Bowman, who defeated Elliot Engel in the next go round. That shows that there was some influence. My thought is that she's uncompromising, and that there are many, and you know very well, there are many legislators in Albany, and I can think of some, I don't want to name them, who have done progressive sorts of things. They've advocated for housing, they've advocated for all kinds of benefits, for immigration reform, and all these kinds of things. But they compromised, and they said, that's okay, but I know in order to get it done, she has said, this is what we want to do. And I think that's helped her to embody what you guys defined as, maybe the most influential person, because she's influenced maybe a whole generation. On that note, we're going to have women. Half of the women who are coming into the city council from the Bronx, prospectively, we know that there's still a November election to go, but it certainly is going to turn out that way, are women, and the city council is going to be, largely female by majority, as a matter of fact. How do you see that playing? Do you see it's going to play? For what kinds of issues are we now all of a sudden going to have a different look at because there are women? And you should know, I asked Vanessa Gibson the same question last week.
Well, I like to look at what has happened with culminating with the resignation of Cuomo, because he himself set out to right the wrongs of sexual harassment, and and part of that process meant that he had to step down too. I didn't think he saw that coming.
Yeah, and he was brought down by women. Let's be clear about it.
Right.
I mean, that's really what happened.
If you really wanted to accomplish that mission, Andrew Cuomo was going to have to face the music on his, bully style and the accusations that were being lobbied at him. So he is a victim of his own doing in some ways. Now we end up with a woman governor, Kathy Hochul, and she's already indicated that she's going to be choosing someone that will become another, be another historic person in government, most likely a person of color from the city. A lot of people speculating on how that will turn out. And I think what you will see with so many women on the city council is an incredibly new, refreshing era of the anti-male attitude. The feeling of, oh, I'm a good guy. I want all these good things for women.
But then
But
they still don't compromise when the lines are drawn.
well, I mean, I think it's clear now that what you do in your private life, what you do in political life has to be reflected in your private life.
Yep.
And even in your professional life. I mean, because here, we've got people being knocked out of office because they're not living, they're not abiding what they're, with what they're asking for.
Yeah, with real values. Before we run out of time, you interviewed, I thought it was fascinating. You interviewed Freddie Ferrer. You were trying to define the notion of power. And this is all, by the way, in the 15th anniversary edition of City and State, which you can find now. Just take a minute. When I mentioned it before the show, you said, oh, it was a great interview. What was great about it? And what survives with Freddie Ferrer, even though he's no longer in office as a borough president, did not succeed to become the mayor, etc.
Yeah, Freddie is someone who's incredibly approachable and very candid, and I've known him since the late '90s, and so it was easy to reconnect with him. We reconnected on an obituary. Actually, I called him up to ask about someone that had passed away, and then for this anniversary issue, I thought about him, and I said, it'd be kind of interesting to talk to Freddie Ferrer about power, considering he's been watching it. He's someone who City Hall wasn't in the cards for him.
Well, he got unlucky because of 9/11. I mean, we know that. We only got about 30 seconds. Give me the one thing that he said that made you say, this was good. This was worth doing.
He talked about how it's all about public service, not power. And, I think if more politicians kept that in focus, they might be able to rein in those distractions.
That is excellent analysis. Of course, we know Freddie Ferrer on BronxNet Television. He helped to create BronxNet Television, and I thought the interview was like, oh yeah, Fred Ferrer. I remember that guy, and it came through just beautiful. I thought you did a great job with it. Anyway, Ralph Ortega, you and all Zach and Jeff and Rebecca Lewis and all the people that we have on the Bronx Buzz from City and State New York. Congratulations. 15 is just the start. I don't know. We'll all have a lot less and grayer hair when we get to another 15, but we expect that that's going to happen in 15 years. Thank you so much for joining us in the Bronx.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Bronx Buzz.
Always great to have Ralph Ortega, editor-in-chief of City and State New York. Make sure you pick it up, get on online. You can register for a subscription. It's just a fabulous publication. But right now we're going to change gears. We're going to talk to an artist who depicts the MTA. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back.